Hello, everyone. This is Tim, and this is a rare event for me. I'm going to have two RPG conversations in the same day. I put up a little invite again, and Steve was willing to chat with me. So, Steve, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your YouTube channel, whatever you want to do.
All right. Hello, everyone. I've been role-playing since I was 9 years old, and I'm 37 now, so it's been quite a long time. Started off, as most people did, with some variant of D&D. I started with AD&D 2nd edition back in the day, and basically moved on from D&D. Don't really play it that much anymore. I picked up 5th edition, but it really didn't entertain me as much as I thought it would, and I tend to lean more towards the more complex games like Rolemaster, although I actually don't think it's that complex when it comes down to it. So yeah, I guess that's a good starting point. You played Rolemaster quite a bit too, haven't you, Tim?
Yeah, that was I would consider that like my first big system where I ran the long, like a long campaign. I played Black Box D&D and Hero Quest and little games like that. But, had some technical problems, sounds like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I played a lot of Rolemaster. Me and my brother and the local kids. We really just focused on the spells and the skills. Anything that really didn't make a lot of sense, we just kind of ignored. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, so how long did you play Rolemaster?
Let's see. I probably picked it up when I was probably around 15, 16, and I've been playing it the whole time. Like almost any time I get together with a new group, Rolemaster is what I bust out.
You were suggesting some little house rules that you guys have where like you don't bump up the stats, because I remember whenever we used to level up, that was like a little bit of an accounting session. Like, okay, I changed these stats, so I have to go back and change all the all the bonuses from those stats to these skills. So that could take some time, but I think there's also auto-calculating character sheets out there now that make that not so much of a problem.
Yeah, well, that's it exactly. I find the temporary and potential stats that Rolemaster used to be quite a pain in the ass, and it really didn't add much to the game. Like, some mechanics in games, they really give a certain feel, which, regardless whether you appreciate that feel or not, such as Rolemaster's crit tables, you either love them or you hate them, or maybe you're ambivalent on them. But I found the temporary stat bonuses didn't add anything to the game and just was extra complexity. So I just dropped them in our games.
Yeah, I think that's probably what took us the longest about leveling up our character. And I think I mentioned in my Rolemaster nostalgia video where it's like, yay, we get to level up. Oh, we get to level up.
Yeah, exactly.
And we did everything by paper and pencil, so that was a lot of erasing and putting in the bonuses and so forth and adding them all up. So it took a while. We were also pretty completist with the Rolemaster standard system. There's lots of skills, so
yeah.
we'd fill out all the character sheet. Probably a little bit OCD with us having to do that for every single skill, even the ones we didn't have ranks in. But the impetuousness of youth, I guess. We had a lot of free time on our hands too. So. Did you guys print out all the character sheets, like the combat charts on the back and everything for each character? How did you guys do it?
Well, for the most part, we were sticking to Rolemaster 2nd edition, so we weren't needing to do all the skill categories, which I actually thought wasn't. Once again, it didn't add much to the game, although a lot of people with RMS as starting points really enjoyed that aspect of it. But as for printouts, it's been a bit of an evolution, really. Back in the early days, I would print out in the back of Rolemaster Companion 2, they used to have these skill costs for every single class up to that point. So there was about 20 or so classes or professions at that point during the game. And I would photocopy those and hand them out as little booklets for people, and I would have like the stat charts and everything else, so I could just hand them that and let them go. And as time's gone on, I'm pretty good at doing things in Excel and Access, so I just started putting my own database together. So everything's auto-calculated now. But one of the things I like to do is I to make people appreciate the work I put into the character generator I made. I make them make it by pen and paper the first time through, and then they can use the generator afterwards.
So you make them earn it, huh? You make them do it the hard way first, and then oh, look how convenient this is with the auto calculation and all the skills get added up.
Exactly.
That's fun. When you guys played Rolemaster, did you play in a lot of different settings? Did you make your own settings? How did you guys do it?
Usually it was just our own settings. That was definitely one of the areas that I thought Rolemaster was lacking in was really in-depth, interesting settings. Most of the ones that came pre-packaged in it just seemed a little bit too eclectic, trying to put everything in. Or I don't know. There's something about the feel of them just didn't feel like it was a phenomenal world to play in. Not that, I think there's a lot of amazingly interesting out-of-the-box worlds that you can get unless you're adding your own spin on things. So
I'm trying to
yeah,
remember the Rolemaster setting. Wasn't it like Shadow World? Is
Shadow
that
World, yeah,
I,
and Shadow World is interesting, but it's almost too big in some ways. And they decided, Terry Amthor, basically the guy that wrote it, came up with new names for all the races. So I couldn't even tell you what races were what, but it will be, something like, these are high elves, but they're called this. And then they're referred to as that special made-up name for the rest of the whole thing. And it was just really hard to wrap your mind around because there were different subspecies of race named for different areas that they would live in. So you could play humans from different areas on the map, and they would all be named something different, but use the same stat race block. Like
see.
it was, yeah, it was a mess.
Kind of get lost in the setting lore, I guess. And like the way you like systems, like them complex and lots of details. That's how I like my settings. So I like in like an intimidating setting. I just started reading Harn. I don't know if you have any familiar ness with that sort of setting, but there's lots of detail. Feudalism's really in it. Lots of orders and clerics and I'm really just kind of a newbie, but I have this giant stack of Harn material that a friend of mine gave me. He was cleaning out his gaming room, and I think the wife put him up to it. So he said, "Ah, man, just take all my stuff. I want someone, I want to have a good home." Uh, but yeah, I'm trying to get into that setting. But I've heard good things about Shadow World, but I don't really know anything about it. So yeah.
It's one of the probably the most prominent, interesting things about it is, or actually, there's two things. One of the first things is that there's this sort of, and it's been a little while since I've read it, so I might be butchering some of this, but there's these sort of magic ley lines or something that disrupt travel. Like it's almost impossible to travel in certain areas, so you have to use magical transportation to get from certain areas to other areas. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So they used like a lot of high fantasy stuff like airships or teleportation, that sort of thing. Lore masters are another big part of it. They're sort of like almost like a Gandalf-esque order, where they basically keep the information and lores of everything. And one of the other interesting backdrop things in that particular world is that they also made it fit in with the old Space Master setting. So there's two settings for Space Master. The new one is Space Master Privateers, which was a whole different universe. But they had an old one before that. The name escapes me, but essentially Shadow World was a world in that universe. So
Oh, okay.
one of the things they had is you could come across technology. So you could pick up a blaster, but it would actually be effectively like a wand or something, so far
So
as you
they sort
guys were
of
concerned.
blended like science and magic, sort of like sci-fantasy, I guess, in some respects.
Sort of, but it was extremely rare. There was I think they were called the Kataviri. I think those are the main like master race that basically they had a empire that spanned galaxies, and there were like a handful of Kataviri left on Shadow World. and they had access to some of this technology, like power swords and stuff like this. But for the most part, the average adventurer would never come across it. It would be like some backdrop thing that only some super important person in the story's history would actually have.
The Tekkamol setting, Empire of the Petal Throne, has that slight possibility of you finding ancient artifacts that might still work, that could be possibly high tech. Because it starts out like a science fiction setting, but then you fast forward ahead a lot of years and things turn to barbarism again. So I like that setting as well. I like a lot of obscure settings. It's a lot of fun to like Shadow World. I don't think I would have been exposed to that if I hadn't played Rolemaster. Because you see all those advertisements in the catalogs and things that I used to get. But yeah, I'll tell people, yeah, I like this setting. They're like, I've never heard of it. I like this setting. I've never heard of that one either. So I guess I'm kind of I have some niche taste when it comes to RPG settings, but it's kind of fun to talk about them and spread the lore out there a little bit so people have at least heard of them.
Exactly.
What was your setting?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, now one of the weird settings that came out for Space Master, they only ever did one book for it. It was called Dark Space, and I think Gary Gygax may have worked on it, or maybe it was Monty Cook. Well, one of those guys worked on it. But it was sort of it was Rolemaster fantasy with science fiction in it, but it was essentially like artificial intelligence was outlawed. And so, androids and all this sort of stuff were basically hunted down and exterminated. But in replacement of it, they started to come up with organic technology. So, for example, if you wanted say a plasma gun or something, you would basically put your hand into this organic mechanism that would insert itself into your arm and become part of your arm. But then you can throw plasma bolts from it. So it seemed like a really interesting setting, and I never really had a chance to run it, but it definitely sparked the imagination a little bit.
I like that idea of organics replacing tech. I was working on a setting for Machinations of the Space Princess. It's called like an offshoot of Lamentations, and I was going to try to do like Sword and Planet, where people could like meditate and teleport between worlds. But the only thing that like metal wouldn't work, so you'd have to have organic everything. So like grown armor, I pictured like vats, spitting out all this kind of stuff that people could use for like traditional like fantasy type weapons. Like in Tekkamol, they skin the hides of these animals, and the hides go through this treatment process and they become hardened, almost to the point of steel, but not quite. So I never actually got around to doing anything with that. There was a movie, I can't remember the name of it right now. I've been trying to think since you talked about that, where that idea is in there. It's they use organic weapons, they harvest animals, lots of genetic stuff going on where they manipulate creatures to produce items like growing off their backs. All kinds of disturbing uses of genetics in those systems. I don't know.
Oh, if you remember what that movie is, I'd love to know. It sounds interesting.
I go through these phases where I'll find a director, and especially the ones that are a little bit weird and off the beaten path, and I'll just watch a bunch of their movies, and I can't for the life of me remember it. But there's like organic guns that are made out of bone and skin, all kinds of disturbing things like that. People were like changing and morphing into weird things if they watched too much TV or. Well, there was like subliminal stuff going on. I can't really remember. It was pretty twisted. They had flesh ports in their back, and sometimes those could get infected. That's where you'd like plug yourself into the system. I think it was like a video game or something. But yeah, it was pretty out there, outlandish type of story. I think one of the phrases from the movie was "All hail the new flesh." Man, it's gonna bother me until I'll have to look that up when I got some time, but yeah. So Dark Space is the name of it. That's kind of a cool name for a setup.
Dark Station.
Dark Station or Dark Space?
Oh, Dark Space. Sorry, I thought you were giving me the name of the movie there.
Oh no, I can't remember it right now. Sorry.
No, here, because we have you open here. I'll see if I can find a picture of it.
Um, well, how about you talk about some of your own settings? Like, were they more like traditional fantasy? Were they like high fantasy? Somewhere in between?
Oh,
Uh,
here's the dark space thing, just so it's up there. But no, most of the time for my own systems or worlds, um, I literally GM off the cuff almost every time.
you
So
just start out like somewhere small and then expand like the map out as you guys adventure and explore.
exactly, well, I've come up with some like a few different things that a lot of GMs always do, which I've decided I don't want to do anymore because it bogs down the game in weird ways. Like as an example with the mapping, every time I've ever seen a map put in front of players, whatever the storyline was, or whatever the quest was at the time, or whatever people were planning to do, even if there was no established storyline, it's suddenly thrown out the window because they want to go to Dragon Mountain or whatever because it sounds cool, and then everything falls apart. And it happens all the time for the groups I've been in. So I really try to avoid giving out maps as much as possible. I
Well, that's
draw them as we go.
okay. So the edges of the map are sort of fuzzy, shroud of fog of war, and you just flesh them out as you go. That sounds pretty cool. I've done that in like campaigns before. Do you use like backgrounds from characters to help maybe like if someone's from a different town over? Do you have that incorporated into the map?
Yeah. If people want to come from like different areas, then I'll definitely detail it. I'll give them information on what those areas would comprise of, or the people that come from there. You know, what their religions are, what their stance is, if they're at war. You know, things like that, like little details. But for the most part, it's literally 100% off the cuff. So I'll sit down, I'll see what everyone's made for characters, and we'll just go.
Let's get to sit on my seat.
Yeah, as you can tell, my son has woke up.
Hello.
Almost your shortest nap ever, Wes.
Yes.
There's that time in life when I think he's getting out of his naps. So we'll try to have this conversation continue. I don't know
Yeah, no worries.
Hey, Wesley, can you say role-playing games?
Uh,
Maybe not, huh? Is that like books?
yeah.
All right. Sorry, I kind of got
Daddy
derailed there.
does like books.
Yeah, Daddy does like books.
I said abra, cadabra,
Yeah.
do.
You a magician?
No.
All right. I don't know how long we've been talking here. Sure, we'll try to wrap something up here. Sorry for the. I told you with kids, you can never.
Yeah,
Oh,
like I
he's
said
upstairs.
on the Facebook Chaos Principle, right?
Yeah, his naps have been getting shorter and shorter. It's kind of, like I'll be like right in the middle of something that needs done. Like, oh, and I hear the steps, footsteps upstairs.
Yeah, not now.
But so you were talking a little while ago about Rolemaster 2 or Rolemaster Classic.
Yeah,
That's probably something that you would recommend if someone was trying to get into Rolemaster.
yeah.
I was more of a Rolemaster standard system, but I can kind of tell from what you're talking about that I think I'm more in line with your way of thinking because I remember the category costs and you have to bump that up and then it would bump all your other skills in that category up and it just seemed like an extra unnecessary step.
Exactly. It was essentially compounded math, and once again, I'm a big fan of, does this rule add to the game or does it not? Is it complexity for the sense of complexity? Like I really understand what they were trying to go for with the categories and the skills, but it actually stemmed from Rolemaster 2 originally, because what was happening is that they had so many skills added into the game in Rolemaster 2 that they got to a point where somebody would want to use one skill to make up for another skill. So, for example, they might want to do sleight of hand using that skill instead of pickpocketing to try to sneak something out of somebody's pocket. So what their resolution was to allow you to use similar ranks. So what that was, you know, using the sleight of hand and pickpocket skills as an example, if you had 10 ranks in sleight of hand, it means you could use half ranks for pickpocketing. So that means you would get 5 ranks worth of pickpocketing, and then you would figure out what your skill was with 5 ranks. But obviously it's a big pain to do this, because you have to go along and you have to recalculate skills on the fly, which with Rolemaster is not exactly the easiest thing to just drop and do. So the end result was they decided to try to make it better with the standard system by using the skill categories. And by setting that up, it allowed it to, you know, you already know what you're essentially good at everything with the category. But I just think it was a bit of a poor, well, both systems really were sort of poor implementations in my opinion. I'm more of a fan of, you know, oh, you want to use that skill, just yeah, use the skill at -30, or, you know, give some arbitrary negative to allow the skill to be used.
I like that idea of using half ranks with similar skills if you're trying to finagle something.
Yeah, it works okay. Like the concept is fine, but in play it slowed down.
Yeah, I do remember in Rolemaster there's a lot of like skills that were sort of like what does that one mean exactly? Let me read the definition, because it kind of sounds like it's this skill. So I think at times there were probably more skills than you needed than you need. You know, but I don't know. It was nice to have that ability to make one character very different than another, and you know, systems with a lot of skills have that going for them. Because you could be a fighter and have lots of different different skills. And then the fighter right down the road.
Yeah, it's one of the things I find really interesting about D20 type settings is how, you know, you have 2 fighters or 2 clerics or whatever, and they're pretty much carbon copies of each other. It's a little better now with the different paths and stuff. You can go down the 5th, but I still find it somewhat similar.
Yeah, I do like skill systems for that regard. All right, Steve. I think we're gonna have to fall a little short. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Our timer has run out.
Apologize for that. But yeah, I'm debating about trying to maybe run a Rolemaster game, and like in some point in the future, I'll probably have to read over it again and come up with my own house rules. Maybe just figure something out. But, hey,
yeah, definitely
Steve?
try Rolemaster Classic for sure.
Yeah, I do have all the PDFs, so I'll have to give them a gander and see what optional rules are in there, which ones look good for me. All right.
Right on.
A quick chat.
Yeah, no worries.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Did you hear what I said? Thanks for the quick chat.
That's right.
What do you say?